Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Lauren Cullen, and I'm the UI UX designer in the Office of Advanced Research Computing. And today I'm here to talk with you about designing AI interfaces for research mobile apps. For context, I create UI UX designs for the mobile apps, websites, and web platforms that our group creates for the research and academic communities here at UCLA. There are several key app features that we create in mobile apps and web platforms for research studies. One of the most important is data collection. So, through the mobile app, participants can fill out surveys, upload files and images, take pictures, and also use Bluetooth sensors to input data directly into the mobile app. So, these sensors can include things such as Bluetooth scales, spirometers for an asthma study, heart monitors, and more. And all this data can go directly into the app where we can do data visualizations, both for participants as well as for researchers. And that can really help with the data analysis and progress of the study. We also create a lot of gamification features for increased engagement. So, for example, for this My Heart Care study that you see in the image on the left, there was a lottery feature to encourage participants to continue in the study and to play this game on the mobile app. Or for an asthma study for children that we did, I created an animated dragon character which would dance and blow fire for the kids whenever they would participate in the study. We also can create notifications to remind participants of different key moments or to participate in the study. There also are a lot of collaboration features that we include as well. In this My Heart Care app, there was a social element where the patients who were participating in the study could have family and friends log into a different version of the app, very simplified version, to see the progress of the patients and to encourage them to continue to participate. Also, for the Spiral Notebook Research Study app that we created, the collaboration was really key because the entire study was about middle and high school STEM teachers collaborating on artifacts of instruction, where they would comment on each other's artifacts, make copies, and work on the artifacts together to have improved instructions in classrooms. So we created an interface that could facilitate this collaboration. So, I want to get an idea for everyone who's here today. If you're a researcher or a UX designer or a manager, a project manager, go ahead and please say hello in the chat. It would be great to see who's here. And I will check on my screen, see if any comments. Thanks, Nate, for coming today.
Hi everyone, nice to be here.
Well, today I'm going to talk about opportunities for AI in research apps, and then I'm going to move into how to design the UX for AI features that we can incorporate into those research apps. So it'll be a little bit of a behind the scenes look at the process in which it can be created. So to start, I want to look at the benefits of creating these AI interfaces for a research study app because AI products and features can really enhance the participant experience as well as support researchers in managing the studies more efficiently. So let's look at three different AI interface types. AI can be in the UI, in the user interface. And this is where the user of an app is directly interacting with AI. Some examples of this include a chatbot or agent or QA interface. This is where we really get into conversational UX, and I'm going to talk more about this in a minute. AI can also be under the UI, so it can be completing autocomplete forms or ranking or any personalization features that an application has that's when AI is under the UI. For AI as the UI, some examples include agent dashboards or autonomous workflows. This is where we're focusing on aspects such as onboarding and gradual autonomy. Now, looking at the levels of AI autonomy, AI can serve as an advisory role. And this is when AI provides suggestions or drafts with the user remaining in full control. AI can serve in a co-pilot role. And this is when AI assists on specific tasks via online suggestions. And then the user can either approve those suggestions or dismiss them. And then AI can serve as bounded autonomy. And this means that the AI is taking limited actions within preset guardrails. And then the user can review and edit any options. And then AI can also serve in managed autonomy. And this is when AI operates independently, when the user can then audit trails and override options. In research, we're currently focused in on AI as either an advisory role or a co-pilot role. So here are some ideas of how AI interfaces can really help with research studies. This includes providing personalized support for the participants. This could be, for example, help with onboarding or a chatbot that answers FAQs. Agentic assistance to guide users through complex or multi-step tasks can be very helpful in moving the participants through the study. Or smarter data collection. So there's a lot of areas where we can summarize the data and detect errors and send an alert to the researchers about what is happening with the data collection. We can also incorporate dynamic adaptation based on the participant behavior and on the context. Conversational interfaces can reduce friction and encourage engagement in the study. Also, real-time insights can really provide more information to the researchers about any issues that are going on or engagement of the participants. And we can further enhance AI-powered features by using retrieval-augmented generation. So this is where we incorporate a knowledge base that is specific for the study. As you can see here in the diagram, the user interacts with user interfaces, and then the AI accesses the specified knowledge base and can bring that information in. The LLM works with it to generate a response and then brings that response back to the user. So this can really help improve the output of the LLM. And this approach improves the accuracy because we're using that trusted source of the knowledge base. It increases the relevance to that specific study and the domain context that has been defined. It provides real-time information by accessing that current data that we've specified, and it also requires less retraining of the model. So, designing with RAG for smarter experiences, we can create things such as customer support chatbots to access internal knowledge bases and provide specific answers. We can create research and analysis tools by summarizing or generating insights from targeted documents and data sets. And also looking at specified knowledge engines, so answering those complex questions in the domains defined by the knowledge base. And before I get into the how to design the UX for AI products, I want to pause here and see if anyone has any questions regarding what we can do with AI in research apps. Thanks for introducing yourselves, Evan and Greg and Nagesh. Um, it's great that you're here. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to also speak up right now and ask. Nate says, what if people used AI for already in their projects or products, or what would they like to do? Has anyone been incorporating AI into research yet? Well, you've come to the right place because it'd be great to talk more about this today, and talk about how we can do this. So, how to design the UX for AI products. This can be done through experience governance. And experience governance is the practice of intentionally shaping the rules that govern agent behavior in intelligent systems. So, designers are creating a choreography of the agents that can ensure effective user experiences that align both with the user intent as well as with the project goals. And here we can look at a classic user-centered design diagram to better understand this, because optimal user experience is found at the intersection of what the user needs are, or the user intent, the project goals, and the information. And this is how, in general, we've always created an engaging digital product that can connect with users as well as achieve the goals of the project. With AI systems, we're focused in on shaping the policies, protocols, and orchestrations. We can approach this with a human-centered focus. So basically, we're creating these systems of intent. We're creating a coordinated set of tools and interfaces and roles. All these elements work together to understand the user goals better and to anticipate them. And this can really provide for a more streamlined and improved experience. So, designing UX for AI involves distinct responsibilities and collaboration models. AI introduces variability, unpredictability, and the need for clear communication about what the system is doing. We're not just designing screens, we're designing explanations, behaviors, and relationships between users and systems. This requires new tools, tighter collaboration between designers and developers, and more emphasis on clarity, adaptability, and trust. So, the way in which we approach this is through the process of user experience design. And this is a nonlinear process that we always use aspects of when creating any application or website project. In the user experience design model, there is the discovery phase, which involves strategy, research, and analysis. The design phase, which involves creating design systems and interactive prototypes. And the testing phase, which involves the coding and testing. And what we're finding in creating AI products is that there's an increased importance and significance of the discovery phase, especially in the analysis step. This analysis can be used to create more effective AI designs and products. So, looking at the UX design process steps in a little bit more detail, in step one of the UX design process, that's where we're defining the requirements and the problem that is being solved. And then in step two, we can research for creating the actual product. This is where we're starting to research our users, the participants of the app, to understand who they are and what their needs are. We can interview our users and conduct analysis on the user interviews. Look at how they're going to use the app in context of the research study and talk with them about their needs. From this, we can start to build out different user types that we can focus on to target in the experience. We also, of course, want to understand the market. What products have come out before that are similar, and how can we differentiate ourselves? What has been successful before? What has failed before? And what are we going to be doing differently? And from this research, we can start in step three to analyze it and process it and create the structure and strategy for building the app. So, as part of our analysis, I want to look in a little bit more detail of some steps and how they apply specifically to AI features. We can create things such as user personas. And user personas are basically a summary document of a user group that was developed in the research phase during the interviews. They use a theoretical person who represents the user group and can break down the needs of that user group. So the image can be AI generated, for example. The name should be theoretical, not a person that was interviewed. And this is just the person that represents the entire user group that was interviewed. And user personas examine aspects such as the technology the users would be using, what is it is that the users would be looking to accomplish by participating in the study, and what the users need so as to complete the study. All these considerations can be included in these user persona documents. And from that, we can also create user journey maps. User journey maps examine aspects such as how the user group discovers the AI tool. How are they going to use it? How are they going to react to it? What is it that the user is looking to gain by engaging in the experience? And what is the user's intended outcome? So, considering all these aspects can be very helpful at this point. This helps us to create flowcharts, sitemaps, and more so that we can determine the discovery flow and how the app will be structured so that we can accomplish this in a very strategic way for optimal results. With conversational UX, there's an interface that supports chat or voice or any form of natural human communication with the AI. So, anytime we're referring to conversational UX, we're referring to the human and the AI interacting in the interface. So, for conversational UX, it's also important to look at what the AI assistant's relationship is to the user in this conversation. We want the assistant's persona to fit the needs of the target audience. So we're looking here at things like tone of voice, standard vocabulary, and service tasks. The AI assistant's persona is very different than a user persona. It focuses on the communication style of the AI assistant because the AI's persona represents the brand of the organization or product. And it's a very important part of creating something like an interface where the user is interacting directly with the AI. All of this information from the AI persona gets inputted directly into the backend so that it will impact how the AI assistant behaves and talks and what the vocabulary is. This info is all something that can be programmed in and defined. And from our user persona, user journey map, and AI persona, we can then create conversation scenarios. So, just like you would create a sitemap or a flowchart, you also want to create a conversation scenario to understand how the flow of a conversation will go. Because we want it to be efficient and effective for the users so they can get to what they're looking for in the best possible way. And so we first define the opening message of the AI assistant. In this example, we will be defining what the chatbot does, what its function is on the site, and what it can provide to the user. And then we envision some questions that our target audience could possibly ask the assistant to respond to. We use all this to envision several different scenarios. And all this info is programmed into the backend as well, so that the conversation flows are much smoother and get to the outcome faster. So before I move into the visual design, I want to check the chat and see if anyone has any questions. Also, please feel free to raise your hand. Rachel says, I'm using a domain-informed agent to answer questions for Earth Sciences research. However, we don't have participants. The researchers are engaging with AI directly via chat. And that's a very interesting use case and very exciting to hear. Yeah, that's really a great project. Thanks, Rachel. Does anyone have any other questions before I move into the visual design? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move forward into step four. Because for any experience where the user interacts directly with an interface, there is a visual design that is essential to that experience. So, creating the UI includes developing a design system so that the components in it are consistent and clear and part of an overall product brand. So the term user interface design really just refers to all of the elements that the users are interacting with. These are the buttons, the form fields, the navigation, and more. And these elements get defined in the design system. And of course, it's essential to make the app as usable as possible for as many people as possible. And this is an important aspect of designing the UI. And this includes looking at things such as effective color contrast and colors that would work for people who are colorblind. Also, things like legibility of text, font choices, and creating a hierarchy of the text. Making sure that hierarchy is consistent and clear, clear H1, H2, body text defined and consistent throughout. We also want to eliminate any distracting UI elements, and this could include things like autoplay video or autoplay slideshows. And also making sure that the app can be read by a screen reader. So, for example, having a submit button for each field so that a screen reader can easily submit an input field. Now, designing the user interface specifically for a RAG experience. You can see that this is the diagram where the user interacts with the front end. So that's where the user interface is. Then the message goes through the adapter and the knowledge base comes into play and the LLM that's being used comes into play. And then it goes back around to the front end where the response goes to the user. So the user interface is where the user is interacting with the AI. Now, affordances are the visual or interactive cues in a user interface that suggest what actions a user can take. They help users understand what's possible and how to interact with the system. In the physical world, you can think of on a door, having being either flat or having a handle to tell us whether to push or pull. Traditional UI design relies on visible buttons and tooltips. For AI products, there are also latent affordances, which are context aware and which surface intelligently based on user behavior, content, or environment. By revealing possibilities only when relevant, latent affordances help users discover AI capabilities, but do so without overwhelming the interface. They reveal hidden capabilities at the right moment to guide the user without distraction. So with these latent affordances, designing for discovery and timing is key. So we could have a pre-intent notice where there's a faint prompt before an action, or something that is mid-intent, where there's an inline suggestion while the user is typing, or something that is post-intent. For example, a feedback message that's a post-action insight and more. So these are just some ideas for creating latent affordances that can help the user through the experience. Now, all the elements, strategy, and concepts come together in the designs. To create these, I use the application Figma. An essential part creating these designs includes wiring them together to create interactive prototypes. So I link all these different pieces to define the behaviors, affordances, and pop-ups, and what happens when the user clicks on specific elements. And then these interactive prototypes can be used for initial testing and for stakeholders to review them better and understand how we're defining how the app will behave. And then these prototypes aid communication with developers, providing all the specs and details for them. Every day, there are new tools to make these prototypes more advanced and closer to the actual developed product. So, for example, Figma just released a new product called Figma Make, where designers can now add a backend to create a functional prototype. So existing designs are brought into Figma Makes prompt and then connected to an outside development platform. So while in initial testing, it's is a little glitchy and inconsistent, this new feature is very promising, and it's a great way to, in the future, turn the designs into a web app that can add things such as user authentication, store user data, connect private APIs, and more. So I'm excited about the direction that interactive prototypes are taking, and how they are getting more and more real, like a web app. Also in Figma, we can right now view prototypes on different devices to get the full look and feel of the app before development as well. And this really does help in the initial testing and stakeholder review. Now, before I get into step 5, I want to pause here and see if there are any questions. I'll check the chat, but also please go ahead and you can turn your mic on to ask anything if you have a question. And I'm actually going to show you a Figma file next. So I go here and demonstrate to you on my other screen a little bit about Figma. And this here is a design file. And in Figma design file, there are 3 different modes. You have draw mode, which is for working on illustrations, design mode, which is where I create all of the designs and layouts, and dev mode, which is where everything is communicated to developers. And here on the side, you have pages where you can organize different screen sizes or have a separate page for a design system and more. And then there are layers, and this contains all of the screens or the frames here of the different screens, and all the content is contained here within. You can open it up and you can see all the different aspects. And then also we have these things called components. So basically, we create in our design systems specific buttons, define all of the actions, and for a hover state, a click state, and more, any interactions that may occur in these components, and then use this initial component to create instance of it throughout the design. And then whenever there is a change to some aspect of it, maybe a different color for a button or different text, etc., then we do this in the initial component and it populates that change throughout the design to keep everything consistent. So every instance that is linked to that original component will change. And then here on the right-hand side, you have this design panel. So when I click on something specific, you can go in here. And this is just a theoretical file based on our OARC homepage that I'm showing you right now. And you can go into here and it's all contextual. So if I'm clicking on text, then it will give me text tools. If I'm clicking on an image, it will give me things relevant to being clicking on that image. And so it is very helpful in that way. We also have this toolbar here at the bottom, which is, how we can add different shapes and images and draw and text and add comments to communicate with the team and more. There's also this actions, which is where a lot of Figma's AI features are located. And some of these, generating an image to use as a filler image in a design, things relevant for translation and text. But also, this first draft feature was a bit controversial when it first came out. Figma pulled it within a couple of weeks because everything was looking like the Apple Weather app. But they've added design systems and libraries into it to make more diverse collection of results. But first draft, if someone needs to work with something on their screen, first draft can be helpful, or is looking to very quickly create a specific type of component and can put that into the prompt. It can help them get started. It is not something that actually does the design for you or creates a pre-made design. It definitely is just to get started with something on your screen so that you can make that design. And it's a tool to help that. And then we have the prototype mode. So I'm going to go over here to prototyping. And you can see I've wired all of these elements together. And you can get very detailed in the prototyping, embed different interactions, have both a click interaction as well as a hover interaction, for example, and get very specific in this to make them as interactive as possible. And what this would look like, if we go to press play here. So for initial testing, it has these hovers, or you can click on specific features and, go to a different page, for example, and more. Now with Figma Make, we're hoping that it can then also add the feature of being able to click into this form and click submit and then save that data. So that's kind of the future of where the prototypes are going. Also, I will show you dev mode to just get an idea of what the developers have access to as well. So right now I have a page highlighted. So it's giving me all the elements on this page. It gives code snippets, colors, any icons, images. I can also click in. So if I want to know the exact spacing around this specific component, and get the icon here and download it. It is available right here for the developers to download directly from the system in context. So this is a really helpful way of communicating all of the specs to developers.
Lauren, there's one question that just might be
Sure.
relevant. Are there any Figma plugins you use recommend for prototyping? Just as you're going through the Figma stuff, I just figured I'd put that on
Yeah,
your
that's
radar.
great. Thank you. Yes, it's a great question. There are no plugins for prototyping. Figma does have an AI feature, though, that can help with prototyping. I don't quite trust it because it can link things you don't intend to link, and then you might have to correct it more than actually just linking things together and being specific in what you're looking for. But there is a feature within Figma. In terms of plugins that I recommend, I'd say that the plugins for accessibility in Figma are probably the strongest. A11Y is free. Stark is a very good accessibility plugin that there's both a free and premium version of, and it can help with both, color accessibility and more. So there are some really great Figma plugins, and I also know that there's some for dev mode, like for development. Right now, like in dev mode, you can connect to a code base and you can change which code snippets here. You can change the language, but there are also some plugins that expand the options of that. So those are some of the main plugins that I would recommend looking at, but I don't know of any specific for prototyping. But thanks for your question, Ali. Okay, great question. Any other questions regarding Figma before I go back to look at testing and coding?
I had a question actually about the the stage. Sorry, prior to this, I probably should have asked back then. But when you were documenting the kind of conversation flow for the AI agents,
Mhm.
typically, how does that end up getting implemented? Is that through like a prompt that you upload for your chatbot?
Well, yes, for the conversation flow, it
Yeah.
can put in the specifics, like for example, the welcome message, which can, for example, define what this chatbot does,
Hmm.
so that the user knows what they can use the tool for, or something like that. That would go directly in. And but then also the flow itself, we use those to in the back end, to kind of lay out some conversation. So to define like, well, after two times of asking this question, we want the user to move forward into this other part of the chat. Like we want to make sure
Oh, okay.
the chat will stay on track, for example. With the ultimate goal of whatever the intended goal is of it. So it really helps the conversations not get off topic or off track. So if
Yeah.
user has like a question that's kind of outside the scope, try to like address it, but then reel the person back in to what the purpose is.
Yeah. So they're not just going in circles or trying to do something they won't be able to do.
Exactly.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great question. Okay. I am going to go back to the presentation and go back to my other screen now. So for step five, this involves testing and as well as coding the actual app. And as part of testing, usability testing can be especially helpful when working on an AI product. And this basically is where we can ask participants to perform specific tasks and provide feedback. And then we can integrate this feedback into the design and make any changes that would be needed that can really help improve it, especially for an AI product. And so this is just an example here of usability testing that was performed when there was a script and we asked participants questions and received feedback, making notes on it together as a team, learning from the process how it will work best for the specific app. And also with AI products, it can sometimes be helpful to first release it as to a limited audience to get the initial feedback and see how the LLM is behaving, making sure that everything is going the way it is intended to in case any tweaks would be needed, especially to the LLM. So, in conclusion, effective UX design is what transforms powerful AI models into meaningful, trustworthy experiences. As designers, we can choreograph these AI systems to provide the optimal tool for the needs of the research study and to integrate AI into these research studies in the most effective way. And now I'd like to open up the floor for questions and discussion. And also, Nate Jacobs, the manager of the mobile team, is here as well to talk about any projects that you may be interested specifically on working with our group. And I also will put in the chat the assessment form. So before you leave, so you can also get to fill that out as well. So yes, please speak up with any questions. Um, it'd be great to hear from you. Is anyone currently working on a research project where you're interested in incorporating AI features?
I'm actually not working on a research project, but there's a lot of interest. I work in external affairs, so we're like on the fundraising and constituent engagement side of things. And there's a lot of interest in providing chatbots for our donors and constituents to engage with, which as the UX designer I've been very afraid of because, that's a very delicate area. There's a lot of, legal questions they may be asking about tax deductibility and stuff like that. And so I'm just approaching it very cautiously in terms of how we might roll something like that out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes we found that the chatbot can answer initial questions, but then direct the user to getting in contact with a person from the
Yeah,
department so that ultimately they are being matched in a way with the correct person and um, can get direct communication too. So to help with any of the legalities of that.
yeah, that's definitely something we're taking into consideration.
And that is something we could help you with too, if you're interested.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Have you, Evan, have you like built stuff and like tested it with like small like just close colleagues and stuff just to kind of test it out, or is it more you're like nervous to even like kind of jump in and start playing with building things?
No, we've been working with a very small, just internal prototype. We're using Amazon Bedrock
Okay.
on our AWS account, and we've built a little, basically just an RAG chatbot.
Uh-huh.
Um, and our current prototype is actually more oriented toward our internal users who currently need to go to our very dated CRM system to look up any information about a donor. And so
Mm.
before we go constituent facing, we're actually looking at maybe using it internally to help people find constituent information more easily through a conversational interface. But it's still very much in the internal using fake data on a tiny little database setup, stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's great because that's like lower risk, right? Like if there's an issue with that, like it stays in house and it's not like a public sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And I think the
exactly.
most important thing is to get your comfort level with different models or different workflows. And then if you're very confident, then that's gonna justify a decision to release something more public. But yeah, so
100%.
that's
Yeah,
great. That's cool. Curious to hear how that all those experiments go.
yeah, definitely.
And Rachel asked in the chat if I'll be sharing my slides. I can send them to you, Rachel, and please, feel free to send me a message if you would like the PDF of the slides. And also, the presentation will be posted on the OARC YouTube channel, so you can revisit this on the OARC YouTube channel as well.
Does anybody have like an idea for something that they're wanting to do, but just hasn't really gotten started with it, or is just kind of at the very, very early kind of concept phase? Um,
These summer,
some are,
those,
yeah,
yep. I
yeah,
am
go for it,
working
Lauren.
on a multilingual LLM database project for a digital humanities project. Do you have any advice for how to cater to our audience in the global South with this idea? I would need to know a little bit more about your project. Summer, if you'd like to talk about it, you can. Be interested to hear what you're working on.
For sure. So we're partnering up with a nonprofit organization that aims to make AI more accessible to people in the global south, especially because like their cultural heritage data isn't as like available on the more mainstream LLMs, nor do we want it to be available on those mainstream LLMs because it's not our job to democratize their data. So we're really trying to like suit their specific use cases through some sort of online chatbot interface.
Hmm. Oh, that's really exciting. I know that the knowledge base will be really important to be specified for the user group that you input and I guess going through like the process and learning about the users specifically and kind of analyzing what their needs are to form the conversation strategy around them so it can best communicate to them. Nate, did you have another idea as well? It's like
Um, yeah, no, I think, yeah, that what you said makes sense. Do you have any advice for how to cater to our audience? Are there specific aspects of the audience? I mean, you mentioned some of the sensitivities around uh like I kind of get that knowledge base. And are there other specific challenges with that particular audience that you're wrestling with that are kind of unique to them?
I would say one is the digital literacy gap.
Okay.
because some of them don't know how to work with like AI interfaces or engage with websites in this way. And then the other one is the language difference because we don't necessarily know how best to communicate these ideas in like a non-English language.
Are there very niche languages that you're working with, or is it mostly like Spanish and like kind of more like languages that would be accessible within like AI systems?
It's for communities in South Africa and Cambodia.
Okay.
Yes, and
So
then
yeah,
Ali
you'd
put
have
in
to
the
do a
chat.
little you'd have to do a little research. It's possible there's support for those languages. I don't know. You can shoot us a DM or let us know, and I'd be happy to kind of look into that. It's probably gonna be hit or miss. I mean, I think obviously the models are like English bias, but then the other main languages I think are in there. But yeah, we'd have to kind of do a little digging to see how it's helpful. But in terms of the digital literacy, like if they're not going to ChatGPT or they're not going to some of these AI platforms, or they wouldn't really go to some website they do stand up, you can also build a workflow that works within like WhatsApp or within like Facebook direct messages, like that, do that kind of thing, which could be an interesting way to connect with people. Like if they're already on Facebook or they're basically meeting them where they are on their platforms, there's ways to do that as well. So that would be an idea to explore.
Right, that makes sense. Thank you.
And Ali Young actually also is working on the project with Summer, and she said, for context, some of the data is around traditional weaving patterns, Buddhist chants, data around cultural heritage. Uh,
Hmm.
so, yeah, it sounds like a really interesting, exciting project. So please feel free to contact us.
Yeah, should we actually, do you want to throw your email in the chat more just so people, or oh, they have
Sure,
it up
it
there.
is
Okay,
on
great.
the
Yeah.
slide. It's lcullen@orc.ucla.edu.
Nice.
And Rachel, you said that I'm contemplating ways of integrating agent chat into a dashboard of personalized data. The format seems like a poor fit because something of a small chatbot is something what we have the room for, but a wider and broader UI would serve user needs better. So, um, the thing about chatbots and assistants and agents is they really can be as big or small as needs are for the specific product. So, it could be, a whole page where the chat is embedded into the page. And then I think you could also have something very small, even like a field with like a latent affordance. So, um, yeah, so it sounds really interesting. There's a high dollar cost that the project probably can't afford. Um, well, I don't know what the specifics are, but using something, the tool that can be integrated, something that's pre-built might be able to help as well.
And
Um,
actually, I'm just going to shamelessly plug in December, we're going to have another workshop that's more on prototyping and like low cost, like kind of like bootstrapping type stuff. So if you wanted to come to that one, we could just see what we can do. It's going to be more of a hands-on workshop. So if you wanted to come to that one, we can just kick the tires on some low-cost things to see what you can build quickly, and then you kind of test and build from there, and then see if you can scale that up to something more robust. Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for your discussion. It's a lot of interesting projects. Um, any other questions or discussion points that anyone would like to bring up? It's really interesting to hear what everyone's working on.
Yeah.
Oh, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be excited to hear from you. And um, the please, fill out the survey, the assessment link that I put in the chat. And thank you so much to everyone coming today. Um, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lauren, for the great presentation. I'll get in touch if we make any more moves on those chatbots for sure.
Oh, thanks, Evan.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.